On behalf of Business North Harbour, Kia ora tātou. Ko Kevin O'Leary toku ingoa, no Liverpool aho. K General Manager, K Business North Harbour. Aho e mihiana, tena koutou, katoa. So good day and welcome everyone. Thank you for giving up your time to join the webinar today. Before I hand over to Simon, our presenter, just quickly want to thank our wonderful sponsors, without whom we wouldn't be able to do a lot of what we do for our members. So North Shore Golf Club, Mark Group, Pathfinder Solutions, Driveline, Spark, Waste Management, Ramada Suites Albany, Montcellier Lawn. We've got David and Emma Jane on the line. So again, huge thank you to them. Benefits and Dale Carnegie, who Simon is representing today. And we also have our silver sponsors. So we've got KC Legal, Phone Plus, and Davenport Law. So again, thank you to all of our sponsors. Before I hand over to Simon, just a little bit of information. So Simon Weekly is Director of Training and Sales at Dale Carnegie, who's been with the organisation for over 20 years. As a senior trainer, Simon has trained over 4,000 people through the world-famous Dale Carnegie programme and delivers their corporate product suite of programmes to some of New Zealand's top 10 companies. Simon's passion for people and being of service to them is deep within his DNA, and his enthusiasm for helping others has led him to commit his time to several boards. Outside of Dale Carnegie, Simon runs his own successful business, as well as promoting support for youth employment direct to business. So without any further ado, I'll now hand over to Simon. Welcome, Simon.
Wonderful, Kevin. Thank you for that introduction. So good afternoon, team, and thank you for joining us today. I'm looking forward to working through a series of pieces of information around psychological safety, what it is and why it matters. But before we start that journey, I just want you to consider a couple of things. First thing, I'd like you to think about what it takes to create an animated film. Maybe an award-winning animated film. Yeah, thinking about Disney animation, for example. With Disney animation, there's over 900 scientists, artists, storytellers, computer technicians that team up in multiple configurations, and some of these team configurations change daily. And they create amazing outcomes like who we see here, Frozen and The Lion King, and they just seem to work together. They're never in the same group twice, and most days they have no idea what's going to happen next. The same token, I'd also like you to consider our public hospitals. They're open 24/7. They have different staff, different rosters, different days, and then the patients, they're all different too. The patients are all different in different and unique ways, and the average hospital patient can be seen by 30 to 40 different caregivers throughout their stay, on different shifts with different specialities, different areas of expertise. And the members on the team may not even know each other's names, but they have to coordinate. They coordinate in order for the patient to get the best care possible. And we all know if they can't coordinate, we can see how drastic the results can be. But just like in business, the Disney people and our hospitals use the same sort of building blocks as business people do. Vision, engagement, ownership, resilience, credibility, trust, values, well-being. These are not new concepts to us in business. In fact, all successful companies understand the need for all of these components. And at Dale Carnegie, we worked alongside organizations for over 108 years, coaching and developing the skills on the screen. Regardless of environmental, economic, or even pandemic circumstances, these have always been in play, but there's been a key ingredient that almost like the mortar, the bond that holds all of these together and makes sure these bricks function. And the mortar that holds them all together and has become and seen today as the foundation for all successful teams is this concept and this term of psychological safety. So what do we mean by psychological safety? Well, if we define it, it refers to a person's perception of the consequences of taking an interpersonal risk. What we mean by that is to share an opinion or speak the truth or to raise a challenge or a difficult issue, or sometimes just to ask a question without being seen in a bad light, without the perception of being treated as ignorant or even incompetent, or sometimes seen as disruptive. So, for example, if someone's in a meeting and the meeting seems to lack focus, it just seems to be drifting. And I'm sure we've all been in a meeting like that where there seems to be no goal or no purpose. If one of the team asks a basic question, why are we having this meeting and what are we hoping to achieve? How would they be seen? Would they be seen as being out of the loop? Would they be seen as being ignorant? Would they be seen as being disruptive? Or would they be seen as asking a valid question, one that others in the organization may have too? And one question that would help focus the group. And this is the fundamental of psychological safety. So I'm going to put a couple of statements up on the screen here for us to have a read through. And I'd like you to just take a moment now and just have a read through some of these 9 signs that may indicate low psychological safety. How often do we see silence in meetings? How do we see leaders often taking control of the meeting and everyone just agreeing? How often do we see people asking for help? See, if we've seen some of these in play and we relate to any of these, maybe we've worked in an environment where psychological safety could have been a little bit better. See, in the book, in the book that really started this concept of psychological safety coming to the forefront, Timothy Clark said that there were 4 stages. He identified the stages as inclusion safety. In other words, they feel included, they have a sense of belonging. Next stage was moving into what we call learner safety, where people can experiment, try new things, and be open to make a mistake. Level 3 is called contributor safety, where they can use their talents meaningfully. And then finally, challenge safety, where it's okay to challenge the status quo. And these levels speak to psychological safety for the individual. If we have a look at it in a different format, these are the stages that we need to consider. So we see the 4, but there's one that's missing, the one that sits at the front that kicks that all into existence, which is called exclusion. Now, exclusion, it's not just a relational exclusion, it could be all manner of things. Sometimes in some organizations that, especially sales teams, it can be a case of it's me or you. I've got to beat you to succeed. Other times it could be a silo, could be the exclusion of one team from another in silos. Sometimes it's a disengaged employee or even an individual leader within a group not accepting members' diversity or equality. Whether it's overt or not, this could be causing the individual to feel excluded. However, once we get them beyond that threshold and into the inclusion side, this is where, for those of us that have a look at motivation, when we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Maslow overlays all of this thinking. So once we get them into here, we get the foundation for psychological safety, where they feel safe. They feel included, they feel valued, they feel important. As they move through, though, they start to get into what we call learner safety. And this is where, as a learner, I can challenge the thinking, I can make a mistake. It's safe and secure for me to speak up, to ask for help, maybe even offer an idea that might seem a little left field, or for some people, it might be possibly seen as stupid. But here they're able to take the risks in a managed environment, experiment, and realize it's okay to make a mistake, but they can ask for help to learn from it. Once they get into contributor safety, it's a stage they move into. Contributor safety just says, hey, in our organization, we've employed you for a reason, and the reason we've employed you is for your unique skill sets. We want you to use them, we trust you to use them, and we need you to use them to contribute to the well-being of our business and the team. And then from here on in, once they get over that contributor threshold, we move into what we call innovation. And this is where they have the ability to challenge the status quo. So, for example, one of the things we often do at Carnegie here is we do innovation projects with businesses. And an example of what we mean was a little while back, we're working with a company in the Hawke's Bay. And in the Hawke's Bay, they had a machine that manufactured apple tray cartons, the purple trays that you see apples sitting on and fruit sitting on in the supermarket. We were having a brainstorm because they were looking at what they could do differently. It was just a simple session. And one of the young members of the team asked the question, why can't we manufacture egg cartons? The senior engineer said that that was rubbish, that the machine couldn't do that. There was no way on the planet it could do that. Fortunately, though, the team investigated it and dug into it and found out that, yes, the machine was quite capable of manufacturing egg cartons. But the issue seemed to be with the old engineer, the senior guy, who it wasn't his idea. He wanted to be in control. He hadn't thought about it. And in some instances, his ego and his pride had been damaged. And this young person all of a sudden jumped from challenger safety all the way back to feeling that she was excluded now from the organization. So again, we see this happening on a daily basis, time after time. So how important is it really? Well, one of the things that we do at Dale Carnegie is we do a lot of research. We have teams that focus on thought leadership. We do an awful lot of surveys that are global. So I'd like to just take a look at some of the results that we found over the past couple of years to have a look at why psychological safety is so important and how it underpins a raft of things. So in this instance, we performed an online web-based survey with over 6,500 people that responded. We ran it over 20 countries, and then we select in that country a range of industries and different sizes. And one of the things in all of our research that stood out tall was the need for leaders and businesses to develop and cultivate psychological safety within their teams. And what we mean by this is that it's very hard to say how common psychological safety is, but we know it's not as common as we'd like it to be, because only 1 in 4 strongly agree that people they work with are encouraged to express their opinions. So 25% of the workforce feel that sharing their ideas is okay. And almost 40% of them were neutral or disagreed that leaders that they worked with make it safe for them to experiment. But one of the frightening things that we found that ties into the back of that was around trusting relationships. And as we see, trusting relationships is key for psychological safety. And the research came back that said 30%, only 30% agreed that a positive and trusting relationship was in play in their workplace. And it's not surprising then that company leaders today, as we work with them in this current hybrid model, this blend of working from both home and office, are starting to realize that we need to put some resources into overcoming this. What can we do to really start to build and establish this psychological safety? As we said, Mr. Carnegie and at Dale Carnegie, we've been working for about just over 108 years on this. And some of the tools that Mr. Carnegie uncovered in his research and foundation stuff around people was he looked at a pyramid. And this pyramid said that to build the foundation of anything from leadership, we need to focus on the relationship side of things. If we get the relationship piece right, just like when we build any structure, those of us that have worked in the construction industry will know that if you get the foundation piece right, you can build whatever you like. If we take our Sky Tower, for example, the Sky Tower requires a mountain of foundation work so that that needle can stay standing. Just like the tallest building in the world, it's almost a mile high. You're looking at how deep that foundation must be. If we get that relationship piece right, easy then to start leveraging off that to gain people's cooperation and to show them how to effectively do the role we need them to do. The downside, though, if we don't get this right, is indifference. And this is where we start to see this breakdown in psychological safety. So there are some simple tools that came out of the equation, came out of the work that Mr. Carnegie put together. And these are some of the fundamental tools. And if we remember that everyone's psychological safety is built on the relationship, We build it team by team. Every interaction that we have has a chance to either create it, to maintain it, or to break it. So the first principle Mr. Carnegie puts up there is to don't criticize, condemn, or complain, because that's the quickest way to destroy psychological safety. And one of the things that we need to coach and be effective at as leaders is, when we make a mistake, admit it. It shows that it's okay not to be perfect. Often our team look at us as leaders and say, hey, how safe is this to make a mistake? And we've just got to lead by example. If we have a look through some of these, and you'll see there's a little golden book picture on the right-hand side of your screen. Please feel free to visit dalecarnegie.co.nz and download a free copy of this golden book. On our website, there is not only the golden book, but there's a mountain of information available to you in the form of white papers that cover a whole raft of issues and topics that we've covered about today. But if we just think now about these teams that we spoke about earlier on, we talked about the teams in Disney. We talked about the teams in hospitals. Based on what we've covered today and what we've talked about, surely we would imagine that when we survey them, that their psychological safety scores would be off the charts. You'd imagine that a team that coordinates across 900 people to design a movie such as Frozen would be in the high 90s to 95 percentile. But we were quite surprised when we started to survey these groups and we started to look at some of the numbers that go with them. In fact, the numbers that go with them don't stack up. If we have a look at these creative teams, only 54% of them were not afraid to bring up tough issues and problems. Just a little over half of these highly engaged, highly creative, highly psychologically safe teams only agreed with that statement. But when we compare it to the non-creative teams, the normal organizations and businesses that we surveyed, we see that only 11% of organizations agreed with that statement. The gap was very much the same here when we asked the question of the two groups. Leaders here make it safe for employees to experiment and learn from their mistakes. Clearly in the creative space, in the creative world, and again in their organizations like hospitals, 51% fed back and said that's what happens here versus 8% in our standard businesses in the survey. And then finally, the question about my team is comfortable with, I love this term, constructive controversy and disagreement about ideas. In other words, how safe is it for us to have a disagreement? How safe is it in a hospital scenario when the head surgeon or the senior charge doctor, his method of treatment's being questioned and challenged by a subordinate? How comfortable are they and the team with this disagreement over ideas? Same again in a hospital situation. When the treatment's not working well, how safe are they to bring up an issue or problem and say, hey, could we try this as a better alternative to what we're doing with the patient currently? So the difference between high creative and all other groups, it says that doesn't matter which group we're in, there's still room for improvement. Obviously, all other organizations that we surveyed have a little bit more room to catch up, but both organizations still need to work around this. And unfortunately, there isn't one quick fix. We have whole sessions and whole programs where we spend time working with organizations to try and build this psychological safety. And one of the things that came out, the whole term psychological safety, it was a term that an individual, Dr. Amy Edmondson, named, and she put the title around it a few years ago. But it was something that when we saw it, it was an aha moment for us. It really was that this is the bond, as I said before, this is the mortar and the adhesive that holds everything together. Because one of the things that happens is when people feel safe, they're in a good place for us to be able to harness their creative techniques and harness their innovation. And I think as we move forward more so into our hybrid world where many of our businesses are going to see people working not only at home, but moving into the office, we've got teams broken, and we're also seeing people now working across borders and across boundaries, just like we are at the moment, working. Parts of us are in level 4, some are in level 2. But this term of psychological safety is going to become more and more essential. So psychological safety, why is it so important? It's one of the keys, because each of our relationships with others either contribute or detract from this environment where everyone feels valued, respected, motivated, and able to contribute their strengths. As we said before, these trusting relationships are at the very heart and the foundation of psychological safety. It goes hand in hand with trust. Funny enough, that's an important element that we've identified of developing resilience in our teams. It's also been shown to yield benefits in terms of team effectiveness, and also helps collaboration and organizational agility. It's the foundation reason why Disney's creative teams work so seamlessly to produce these box office masterpieces, and why successful hospitals together save lives. If you'd like to know more about this topic, join us for the upcoming workshop that we've got going in partnership with Business North Harbour, or feel free to just reach out and contact us directly. Either way, I look forward to connecting with you shortly, and I hope today has shed some thoughts and ideas and created some thinking for you around what we need to do as leaders to create this psychological safety amongst our team. Happy if there are any questions. There's a Q&A box. We'd love to have any. I don't know whether we've had any questions coming in, Kevin.
No, not at the moment, but if people want to, please feel free. We've got a few minutes left.
Yeah, and as I say, happy to answer questions, or happy, if you want to reach out directly, my details there on the screen, or visit our website or call our office. Only too happy to have a discussion and see how today's resonated with you.
First of all, thanks, Simon. Very, very insightful. And as I do at the end of all our events, whether they're webinars or in person, my challenge to you all, or first of all, is to thank you as ever for giving up your time to attend. But my challenge to you all is, so what now what? You've given up your time. You've got some really useful information. My question is, and the challenge is, what are you going to do with that information now? Unfortunately, a lot of people attend, and it's a bit like a strategic plan for a lot of people. You write it, and then it just don't do anything with it until it's due again in the next 3 or 4 years. I mean, at Business North Harbour, one of the things we do try and create is a really safe working environment where people do feel psychologically safe. And I know as business leaders, you will all want that for your businesses and your employees. So I would encourage you to utilize some of the information. And this is really just scratching the surface, as Simon's just alluded to. Once we can and do so safely, then Simon will come in and run an in-person workshop on the same topic. I've just noticed, Simon, there's some questions if you want to go to them.
Okay, so we've got a question up here, Kevin, about let others do a great deal of talking, how to encourage that when you have silence or no feedback. Yeah, I think there's two sides to that as well. I think one of the challenges that we have today is this portal, especially in this hybrid world where we may have teams together on a Zoom meeting, and it's very easy for an individual on a Zoom meeting to hide back. In fact, one of the things that we're working on tomorrow is we're running a webinar on leading hybrid teams, and that webinar we do talk about how to draw people out into communication through this virtual means. But one of the things that we've seen about encouraging others to talk is basically becoming genuinely interested in them to start off with. Encourage them, and as a leader, talk to them one-on-one, build that relationship, get them comfortable with talking to us by being genuinely interested in who they are and what they have to say. That will then transfer into the workplace, into our business world, and also into the Zoom meetings where they do know that it is safe to actually have a voice. Hopefully that shed some light on that. I mean, it's certainly a challenging question, I know. Yeah, other people, sometimes on the other side as well, as you'll have a disengaged employee who's certainly needs to be worked on from a relationship point of view as well to help move them into that space.
Okay, thanks, Simon, for that. There don't appear to be any more questions at the moment. And again, I'm conscious of time. So just to thank you again, Simon, for your presentation today. Really, really insightful and useful. So thank everyone who's attended, and sincerely hope that when we do manage to run this in person, we actually see you all in person, where we can delve into this, what a really hot topic, particularly around people's well-being and their mental health and well-being in the not too distant future. Thank you all, and we shall see you again, hopefully in the not too distant future. Take care out there, stay strong. Thank you and farewell.